Hi, everyone. I have something to read to you. This is a sort of blockchain 101, not for people who want to learn how to code it. For that, I would direct you to UNICEF, where you can get funding for all sorts of blockchain initiatives. But for people who want a platform from which to launch their own updates regarding how it's linked to Agenda 2030 and the New World Order. If, like me, you have seen or read posts that, while not disbelieving their veracity, you don't fully understand and therefore can't share because you lack the knowledge to defend the likely barrage of disbelief and dissent that telling the truth seems to provoke these days, then I thought I would share my basic perception and perhaps we can all build from there. You may, like me, have a vague understanding of the fact that blockchain is a new-ish, not really. It was initially proposed as a research project in 1991, and its first widespread application was Bitcoin in 2009. But regardless, like me, you may understand that it's a new form of computer coding, like the original HTML, which predated coding languages like C and C++, etc., with which we have built websites and e-commerce sites for the last few decades. But perhaps, like me, you may not be entirely clear on why it is something that people in the know are trying to bring to our attention as an absolutely vital, poisonous component of the phenomenally comprehensive global pincer movement that is now well underway. I've seen lots of posts drawing analogies between the name itself and the concept of being chained. The whole thing is actually pleasingly rife with potential metaphors. And that's me being grateful for small mercies rather than being a proponent of the cause. So for a total, like me, or relative, which I'm sure all of you lovely people come into this category, ignoramus, what is it about this form of coding that presents such a problem? Actually, it doesn't take much digging to figure that out. I'm quoting in this part of my presentation from an article on Investopedia by Adam Hayes, which was apparently fact-checked by the all-knowing, all-seeing human oracle, Suzanne Gvil-Hogg, and updated on March the 5th, 2022. A blockchain is a distributed database that is shared among the nodes of a computer network. A database usually structures its data into tables, whereas a blockchain, like its name implies, structures its data into chunks, blocks, that are strung together. This data structure inherently makes an irreversible timeline of data when implemented in a decentralized nature. When a block is filled, it's set in stone and becomes a part of this timeline. Each block in the chain is given an exact timestamp when it is added to the chain. Decentralized blockchains are immutable, which means that the data is entered is irreversible. For Bitcoin, this means that transactions are permanently recorded and viewable to anyone. A record could be a list of transactions, such as with cryptocurrency, but it's also possible for a blockchain to hold a variety of other information like legal contracts, state identifications, or a company's product inventory. Now, this is back to being me, and I don't think that I have to dwell too much for our further comprehension on the fact that it creates an unalterable record of action or inaction. But I would like to touch on the last little aside, that blockchain can be used to create a record of state identification. Perhaps the fact-checking role in this article was to ensure that the reference to anything approximating digital ID was suitably marginalized by the author. But it did say, but it also is, and this is probably the bit that was fact-checked because it is badly written, but also it is what it says. But also it is possible for a blockchain to hold a variety of other information like legal contracts, state identifications, or a company's product inventory. So presumably, and people are welcome to correct me and enhance my understanding if I'm wrong, or even if I'm right, but it's this aspect of blockchain that is giving particular cause for concern. If everyone is issued with a digital ID, which is authenticated by biometric data and connected to every interaction that we have with regard to the state and personal commerce, so for instance, your digital ID will be connected to your health, social, welfare, tax, travel, and business records, as well as your personal bank records, which, because of the upcoming advent of digital currency, will mean a literal list of every single purchase that you make, or for our young ones, every single purchase they have ever made. Just imagine for a moment that there was a traceable tally of every purchase that you had ever made, including the ones that you'd paid for in cash. You know, when people say that they're glad that Facebook didn't exist when they were at university, well, this is like that on steroids. Quite apart from the idea of never being able to leave an action or transaction in the past where it belongs, think of how often a small hiccup with the bank has caused you disproportionate problems. Think of how often the tax office has made a mistake and you have had to spend hours on the phone trying to get hold of a person who can help you, only to be bounced from automated system to automated system until you think that you're going to scream. Now, imagine if those issues had been tied by a social ID score to everything else that you were able to do or not do. Imagine that some snafu with the bank meant that you were immediately perceived across the linked up system to have dropped insufficient number of credits to impress the employers of the interview that you had the next day. In fact, they phoned up to cancel because they've just checked your score and they don't even want to meet you. Or your mortgage falls through for the same reason. Or a temporary halt is put on your being able to make specific purchases or travel to certain locations, or even over a certain distance, until by virtue of automated phone calls and communing with artificially intelligent bots, you're able to convince someone to change your immutable record. Doesn't sound very good, does it? Well, all of this is now not just very possible. The foundations have already been laid, the scaffolding is up, and the bricks are being cemented in place. They're going to blockchain us to hell. The technology exists, the will among the elites exists, and the ball is in significant motion. The only thing that can stop this aspect of it now is for people to use cash and to refuse to work as blockchain software engineers. Only even that last one won't save us, because they're touting and funding skills training in blockchain expertise acquisition to African children as a way of extricating themselves from the abject poverty that colonialism has inflicted upon them, ripping them from their cultural roots and replanting them in the toxic soil of ultra-capitalism, which will prey at first on their basic needs, and then, as it does on all people, their fledgling materialism. And well, the rest is Western history. So literally the only thing that can save us now in this regard is to use cash, to refuse to buy from any business which has phased it out, and to reject on principle the introduction of digital IDs. If we don't, we will all be ball and blockchained immutably. Thank you for listening. As you know, I love you all and I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.